My name is Wilke Boosman. I work for the Zurich group in Switzerland in the group finance department, and we run a finance transformation program worldwide. And one of the elements in the finance transformation program is SAP convergence. So I'd like to take you first a little bit through our journey. If you realize that our performance today is okay, but at some point we will exceed, let's say, the recommended size of the summary tables. There's the size note says 10 million. There are companies out there that are way beyond the 10 million, we know that. Today's count, I just requested it, is 5.4 million, but we'll exceed that quite quickly when we roll in and once we grow, let's say, our business. I mean, this is a relatively new platform, so we still have time, but we're only 1/3 of the way of our roll-ins. So at some point, performance will become a problem. We also have the classical SAP BW, which updates every 2 hours. And in the closing, this is, of course, as usual, not enough for an accountant. They want every second updates, but 2 hours is what they get at the moment. So this is, let's say, business requirement pain point number 1. The next one is around expense allocations, the allocation cycles. Normally you would see probably an allocation cycle just across cost centers and you're done with it. Of course, that's also not enough for us. We want more. We want to allocate across a couple of those dimensions. That's why we do FI allocations and not only in CO. Right? CO, we can do the cost center allocations, but in FI, we need to allocate from cost centers then to functional areas, to segments, etc. And we want to have the full traceability back. No insurance company today, and I believe Allianz is in the audience, does this only in SAP. Today, that just doesn't work. So if you look at the whole allocation process, the big insurance companies at the moment need other tools to just complete the whole cycle. Right. We have our BU Germany uses a tool called ELMIS where they already aggregate the keys and ship it over to SAP where they do part of the process, bring it back into ELMIS where they then report out of because that's where they need to have the granularity. UK and Australia use TM1, maybe more familiar. Also there they already prepare the allocation cycles, bring it over, let SAP do its stuff, bring it back for reporting. It's quite a horrible process. So the reporting is quite ineffective, a lot of manual steps in between. And currently, if we roll in a 9-hour allocation cycle, in new GL world, it blows up to an 18-hour cycle, which pushes the closing time under pressure, right? The third one is very much a homegrown solution, not standard SAP as such. It's more based on special ledgers. Between, let's say, the close of IFRS all the way to BCS submission, we have a couple of steps in the middle. We roll it up, we enrich, we segment, and then we give it to BCS for the consolidation piece. And there are 8 steps in the middle with 4 roll-up ledgers. And these are absolutely needed today. And again, it's basically built around the group requirements. And of course, the fact that we need summary tables to store this, enrich it further, and then hand it over to BCS. Right? This can only be run at month end once you have all your data in the system. And it provides at the moment a nice snapshot reconciliation between what GL holds and what BCS holds. But this is a long process. It's a batch-oriented, step-by-step, cannot be so much done in parallel, needs to be sequential. And it's a big chunk in the closing timeline. So all of these things we brought into the SUV, the customer validation, and we said we have a threat on the roadmap long-term on our landscape because the summary tables. We will run out of this 10 million. Not sure how afraid we need to be at this point, but it's out there. Can we move away from batch-oriented closing processes, right? Can we do it maybe more on a daily basis instead of just month-end based? Because one segment, general insurance, wants the data actually earlier than we can provide out of BCS. So again, you have timeline discrepancies. I believe it's a 4 terabyte IBM box or something. And then the add-on was installed. And if I'm not mistaken, the moment you install the add-on, at that moment, the summary tables are basically gone. The index tables are gone, right? And that means that from last week, Tuesday, we actually started our closing cycles, basically sort of a big regression test, right, on the HANA box. Basically, our current closing cycle of some larger companies, run them through. Just look if it works. Look what we see in terms of performance. And now I have started to challenge the team. So what does this mean for us? That's only the start of the journey. So that means that we still have some work to do. And then by April, May, we need to start concluding and also summarizing to management what this means and what the next steps would be. And maybe I haven't been able to make these slides very, very sexy. So these are some results from the test team. This is one that one of our people put together. And it shows some of the basic transactions that any accountant uses on a daily basis, right? Today in any SAP system. So take an example. Just the GL line item. If you run it for 100,000 or run it for 200,000 items, what we see between the HANA box and our test system is quite a remarkable difference. And what's more interesting here is actually that the blue line is, let's say, the HANA performance for 100,000 items, and then the HANA performance for 200,000 items. And the red line is then 100,000 line items on our normal test system. It actually is much slower the moment you have more items, right? And HANA is not. So I guess technically they told me this is like a runtime growth rate or something. But the performance degradation on the normal test box is much higher. And this is just the standard SAP transactions. GL, AR, and AP. The next one is where one of our testers actually also started to have a look at some of the new transactions in the system. Banking itself was not so surprising, just worked fine. Nice. TANA and the Fachel 03H are the new HANA transactions, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where you see the remarkable performance improvement, right? In other words, the code pushed down to the database level makes this happen. The standard transactions are, if I translate this correctly, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, are still working in the application layer and have a performance impact, but that is mainly due to the database switch, right? The database switch makes it 3 to 4 times faster, but the code push down in the new transactions make it amazingly fast. So her conclusion is, from this point of view, there is not much time saving just by posting documents, because you still need to write this, of course. That's the insert stuff. But the high expenditure of time analysis today can be reduced considerably. Okay, so that was good to see. One of our areas where we will dig into much more in the future is the expense allocations. So the classical CO cycles are 4.5 times faster on the HANA box compared to our normal production environments. So this is really production today compared to the HANA box. We have a custom-built reposting program, which is 3.3 times faster. The FI cycles themselves only 2.4 times faster, and now Radim from the development team is having a look if he can bring some of the code down, I assume, to see if there will be a remarkable improvement in that area, which would help us a lot. And then again, there's a cost center line item transaction, a new one, which is then very, very fast compared to the normal transaction, the old report in PE3. Normal CO reports don't show any improvement at this moment. The next one is in our rollups. The rollups itself are also not optimized, so this is just standard solution that we have today. Custom code, right? These are our parallel ledgers, the rollup ledgers. And this is the sort of first rollup ledger where we have a certain improvement in performance. We have another one and another one. On average, you can say it's 26% faster without any of optimization done. So it's just a week down the line at the moment. So the next point is end of this week. We want to close this first cycle. Then we want to try and see how could we go back to almost a drawing board